In today's episode, when Christianity couldn't answer me, why Buddhism's wisdom finally made sense. We'll explore ways to bring more clarity, calm, and mindfulness into your day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of the inspiring stories and wisdom we'll share next. Imagine leaving everything familiar, your home, your faith community, even your deepest beliefs, to step into a completely different spiritual world. That's exactly what one Christian seeker did in the mid-1980s. What started as a simple curiosity about Buddhism became a 7.5-year journey in Sri Lanka, living among monks, meditating in temples, and studying ancient Pali texts. This wasn't just a polite exchange of ideas, it was a bold attempt to let go of old conditioning and truly understand another faith from the inside out. In November 1992, this journey intersected with the BBC. David Craig from the World Service and Reverend Martin Forward traveled to Sri Lanka to capture stories of Buddhism for an international audience. The author was asked to prepare a series of talks called Words of Faith. These broadcasts aired between 1993 and 1994, and 8 of them were eventually published, offering reflections on themes like mindfulness, compassion, the mystery of no self, and the role of women in religion. But these weren't abstract lectures. They were born from real experiences, nights of meditation in silence, conversations with monks, and witnessing the suffering caused by war. What's remarkable is that after years of exploration, this traveler remained Christian, yet came to deeply revere the wisdom of Buddhism. So here's a question for you. What would it take for you to step outside your own worldview? Not to abandon it, but to see it with new eyes. That's what this journey invites us to do. It's a reminder that faith doesn't have to be a wall, it can be a bridge. In this series, we'll explore these reflections not as distant philosophy, but as a living dialogue between two rich traditions that can change how we see ourselves and the world. When you hear the word meditation, what comes to mind? For many people, it's an image of sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, mind completely blank, almost like falling into a trance. But that's not meditation. True meditation is not about escaping reality. It's about waking up to it. It's a vigorous training of the mind, a process that can reshape the way we think, feel, and act. I remember my first meditation retreat. Sitting still for hours felt impossible. My thoughts raced, my body ached, and every little sound distracted me. But that was the point. By observing my breath, noticing my emotions, and watching my thoughts rise and fall, I began to see how restless and unpredictable the mind really is. And in that awareness, something powerful happened. I started catching myself before reacting out of pride or anger. I even noticed my competitive streak softening when I didn't feel the need to do better than the person next to me. One of my teachers said something I'll never forget. Meditation is the ultimate practice of nonviolence. At first, I didn't understand, but over time, I realized that learning to sit with your own mind without judgment or aggression is an act of kindness, not just to yourself, but to everyone around you. When we are at peace within, we stop pouring chaos into the world. So here's a question for you. What would your life look like if you could pause, observe your thoughts, and respond with clarity instead of impulse? Mindfulness isn't about perfection. It's about training the heart and mind to be fully awake so that every breath becomes an opportunity to live with compassion and wisdom. There's a striking teaching in the Buddhist text Majjhima Nikaya. A monk should not retaliate, even if someone were to saw them limb by limb. At first, that sounds impossible, unrealistic even. But let's pause. This teaching isn't about weakness. It's about unimaginable strength. It's about cultivating a heart so free from hatred that even violence cannot shake its peace. This reminds me of Jesus on the cross, praying for the forgiveness of those who crucified him. Across different faiths, we see this radical call to rise above vengeance. But here's the truth. Non-retaliation doesn't mean doing nothing. Buddhism doesn't teach us to be passive. Instead, it calls us to act, but without hatred, to protect the innocent, to speak against injustice, to help those in pain, yet to do it all without letting anger poison our hearts. I've heard powerful stories of this principle in action. There was a monk who remained calm while being harassed by soldiers during a conflict. His calm presence disarmed them, not with force, but with fearlessness and compassion. They simply walked away, unsettled by the peace in his eyes. Violence is not overcome by violence. Hatred is not defeated by hatred. This truth isn't just spiritual, it's deeply practical. Think about it. When was the last time anger actually solved a problem in your life? Revenge might feel satisfying for a moment, but it always leaves scars. Non-retaliation is not about being a victim. It's about breaking cycles. So here's the challenge. What if the greatest power we can wield is not the ability to strike back, but the courage to choose peace? This path isn't easy, but imagine the change if more of us practiced it, starting in our homes, our workplaces, even our daily interactions. What if I told you there are 4 qualities that could completely transform the way we see ourselves, others, and even the world? In Buddhism, these are called the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes. Think of them as 4 states of mind we're invited to live in every single day. The first is metta, loving kindness. It's that warm, genuine wish for others to be happy, even people who challenge us. Then comes karuna, compassion, the courage to feel someone's pain and the desire to help. The third is mudita, sympathetic joy. Imagine truly celebrating another person's success without jealousy, letting their joy lift you up. And finally, there's upekkha, equanimity. This one is often misunderstood. It's not apathy or indifference. It's a steady wisdom that keeps us from being tossed around by ego-driven emotions. It's a calm strength, not a cold heart. What I love about these qualities is that they're not tied to a single religion. Whether you're Buddhist, Christian, or not religious at all, these are universal virtues that go beyond belief systems. They invite us to focus less on debating who's right and more on how we can love, support, and respect one another. Think about your own life for a moment. What would your family feel like if you practiced more loving kindness? How would your workplace change if compassion became the norm? These teachings aren't just spiritual ideals. They're practical tools for building relationships, reducing stress, and creating harmony in a divided world. The Brahma Viharas aren't meant for monks meditating in caves. They're for everyday people like you and me, navigating busy lives. They challenge us to rise above ego and live from a place of generosity, courage, and balance, a way of being that truly makes the world feel more like home. Vesak is one of the most sacred days in Buddhism, a celebration of the Buddha's birth, his enlightenment, and even his passing. Imagine that, a single day that honors an entire life's journey, from birth to awakening to the moment he left this world. In many parts of Sri Lanka, streets glow with lanterns, families gather, and temples overflow with offerings. Yet, in 1991, while the south of the country was lit with celebration, the north, Jaffna, was in darkness, torn apart by war. That contrast was striking. Joy and suffering existed side by side. But maybe that's exactly what Vesak is meant to teach us. The Buddha's enlightenment wasn't just a spiritual milestone. It was a profound discovery about the human condition. He realized that much of our suffering comes from a false belief in a permanent, unchanging self. We cling to things, possessions, status, even relationships, as if they could last forever. But everything changes, and our refusal to accept that truth breeds pain, craving, and hatred. Vesak isn't just a holiday. It's a call to wake up. It's an invitation to look honestly at the causes of greed, violence, and division, not just in society, but in ourselves. The Buddha didn't promise an easy path. He chose to share truths that were difficult to hear, but deeply liberating. that freedom is possible when we stop clinging and start understanding. So, as lanterns light up the night sky, maybe Vesak is asking us, what illusions are we holding on to? What would happen if we learned to let go? Even in times of war, fear, and chaos, this message shines. A reminder that peace isn't found by escaping suffering, but by facing it with wisdom and compassion.
Christianity echoes this wisdom. In Colossians 3:3, Paul writes, "For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God." At its heart, Christianity also calls us to die to our selfish ego, to let go of that hard shell of me-first thinking, so we can live in harmony with God's love. Both traditions, though different in language, point toward the same freedom, a life not ruled by fear, pride, or craving, but one rooted in connection and grace. Think about how much energy we spend protecting our image or clinging to control. What if we could release that burden? Like that elderly woman climbing Sri Pada, we might discover that letting go of me doesn't make us weaker, it makes us lighter. It's not about disappearing, it's about awakening to a bigger life, one beyond the limits of the ego. When people first hear about detachment in Buddhism, they often imagine coldness, an empty, emotionless life shutting out the world. But after spending years in Sri Lanka, I realized this stereotype couldn't be further from the truth. Detachment isn't about turning your back on life, it's about freeing yourself from craving and ego so you can love more deeply. The great Buddhist scholar Buddhaghosa defined compassion as a trembling of the heart, a natural response when we see suffering and are moved to act. It's not pity, and it's not passive. Compassion is a force. It pushes us to step in, to lift others up, to ease pain wherever we find it. True detachment clears away selfishness, fear, and pride, making space for this kind of powerful love. The lives of both the Buddha and Jesus reflect this beautifully. Neither was cold or distant. Both were deeply compassionate, willing to enter into the suffering of others to bring peace. Think of the serene statues of the Buddha at Galvahara in Sri Lanka, his calm, compassionate gaze carved in stone for centuries. It's not a symbol of apathy, it's wisdom and empathy in perfect balance. And here's something to reflect on. When we cling to people, possessions, or even our own emotions, our love often becomes controlling or fearful. But when we learn healthy detachment, our love becomes purer, freer. We can stand with someone in pain without being crushed by it. We can help without expecting anything back. Imagine a world where more of us lived this way, calm, grounded, yet deeply compassionate. Detachment is not about escaping life, it's about entering it fully, with a heart so open that no amount of suffering can make it close. That is real strength. When we think of Buddhism, we often imagine serene meditation halls and quiet reflection. But did you know the Buddha also spoke powerfully about social justice? In the Chakravarti Sihanada Sutta, he warned that entire societies could collapse, not because of fate or divine punishment, but because of poverty and systemic injustice. The text outlines a chilling chain reaction. When the poor are neglected, desperation leads to theft, theft to violence. Morality erodes, religion decays, and eventually, anarchy takes hold. What's striking is that the Buddha didn't point fingers at bad people, but at broken systems. He recognized that if leaders and communities fail to care for the vulnerable, suffering multiplies. It's a message that feels eerily relevant today, isn't it? Look around. How many social problems we face are rooted in inequality and neglect?
But here's the hope. Transformation doesn't only come from the top. The Buddha also taught that change begins in the hearts of ordinary people. Grassroots moral revival, individuals choosing integrity, compassion, and wisdom can ripple outward, reforming entire systems over time. In other words, justice isn't just a political battle, it's a spiritual one too. Buddhism reminds us that social justice and personal transformation are two sides of the same coin. Meditation, mindfulness, and ethical living aren't about escaping the world, they're tools to heal it. Imagine a society where leaders and citizens alike are guided by compassion rather than greed, and policies are shaped by wisdom instead of fear. So when we sit in meditation, we're not turning away from injustice, we're preparing ourselves to meet it with clarity and courage. Real peace is built not only in monasteries, but in communities, homes, and the choices we make every day. Compassion isn't born in comfort, it's forged in moments that shake us to the core. I remember standing in Kataragama, Sri Lanka in 1989, not long after a bombing had torn through a sacred site. The air still carried the weight of fear, and everywhere I looked were faces haunted by grief. In that moment, my instinct was to shut down, to put up emotional walls as a shield against the pain. But instead, I chose to stay open, to feel it fully. That choice changed me. What I realized was this: the suffering I saw wasn't their suffering, it was ours. It wasn't just their fear, their grief. It was a reflection of the same vulnerability we all carry. That day, I understood that compassion isn't pity, and it's not weakness. It's a courageous act of connection, a willingness to let another's pain touch your heart. This isn't just a Buddhist teaching, it's a deeply human truth. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we discover how deeply connected we all are. It's the stranger's tears that remind us of our shared humanity, the cry of a grieving parent that awakens the truth that life is fragile for us all. There's a poem I love that captures this perfectly. Do not shield yourself from the world's pain, for it is your own. In opening to sorrow, you open the door to love. So I ask you, what would change if we met suffering not with fear or judgment, but with courage and empathy? Perhaps this is the real power of compassion, not to erase pain, but to transform it into a bridge between hearts, reminding us we're never truly alone. If this message spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to join this journey. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, because your perspective might inspire someone else too.